And we are back with the fifth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fifth segment, I'm going to be talking about Ben Simmons and whether or not we should still believe that he has more left in the tank. Because there are a lot of people that think that, Ben Simmons is essentially done and that he shouldn't be in the NBA anymore. And then there's also the small margin of people that still have a little bit of faith in Ben Simmons and his game. So this segment is sort of going to be covering all of that stuff that's been going on with Ben Simmons, because now the Nets, they're trying to remain optimistic with Ben Simmons, and that could either spell good news or bad news. And in my opinion, I think it spells complete and utter bad news. However, there are other sources that claim that the reason why the Nets remain optimistic about Ben Simmons is to hopefully increase his trade value, because the contract that Ben Simmons is working with right now, he's standing at $40.33 million over the next season, which is a lot of money for someone who doesn't play on the court and doesn't play all that many games and has an injury history to back that up. And again, this is the Nets are stuck between a rock and a hard place, because they do want to rebuild, but they also want to be able to sort of increase, in order to rebuild, they have to sort of get rid of Ben Simmons and try to increase his trade value. And in order to do that, he actually has to play basketball, and he has to play it well. And I just wanted to address this quote that Ben Simmons said a few days ago, actually a day ago, from this CBS article. He said, quote, "I think people forget me as a player when I'm healthy. I can play basketball, and I'm pretty good, right?" I don't even know where to begin with that quote. Sure, you can play basketball, but do you play basketball? No. You've been sitting out for a majority of these seasons. Can you play basketball? That's also a question in of itself, because not many people are even sure that Ben Simmons can reach the same level that he had in his rookie year, which should have been his worst year, but ends up being his best year. And the Knicks, they continue remaining optimistic. There are several articles that are saying they're optimistically delusional. Literally, delusional is in quotes over here. That's the article, not me. And again, he recently underwent surgery with no setbacks in his recovery. He's getting encouraged from the organization. And under this optimism does lie the strategy of trying to increase his trade value. But again, that huge contract that he's going to be, and all that money that he's going to be making, it would take a lot for somebody to end up trading for him and expecting some sort of value from him in that contract. That contract is really, really messing up the trades for Ben Simmons. It's really, really messing that up, because you could easily go over into the second apron or into the first apron if you trade for Ben Simmons, depending on how the trade details work. And again, this is I don't even know where to begin with this, because I don't think the Nets should be optimistic about him whatsoever, and I don't think anybody else should be optimistic about him. Ben Simmons has already shown the player that he is, and he's a player that cracks under the pressure. He's a player that cannot handle scrutiny. He's someone who refuses to shoot the basketball despite teams knowing that he doesn't want to shoot the basketball. It's just there's a lack of improvement as a player there. And in a league where players are constantly improving and constantly trying to make more money, how can you be all right with just being all right? Does that make if that makes any sense? And even then you can make the argument that Ben Simmons isn't all right, because he has his problems in of itself already on the offensive side of the ball. Since teams already know that he's afraid of shooting, that takes away a lot of the attention that he's going to draw, not only outside of the arc, that affects his playmaking from outside of the arc as well. And on top of that, when teams know that he's just going to take a layup, then you can easily play back. And teams that have a solid rim protector to guard Ben Simmons are going to have a field day against him. Again, if Ben Simmons is near a fraction of the piece that he was when he was on Philly, you can make that argument. But he's just not. He just hasn't shown any improvement. I don't think there should be any sort of optimism when going into Ben Simmons whatsoever. And the article continues, the front office is well aware that no team is going to take Ben Simmons' contract unless he demonstrates a return to form. and his performance needs to rise to the level where teams view him as an asset, not as a liability, which is what he has been for a very long time in his career. And if the Nets can rehabilitate his value, they could potentially package him in a trade deal for draft picks or pair him with their own draft equity to acquire a pretty solid all-star. Now, in short, the Nets are betting that a successful rehabilitation of Simmons' game could unlock significant opportunities for their future. And betting on Ben Simmons is not ideal. I'm sorry to say this, but my faith on Ben Simmons is incredibly low. Because every single offseason, we have to see how he plays in the gym. Oh, Ben Simmons is shooting the ball with his left hand now. He's shooting the ball from deep. This is great. This is going to be a great season for Ben Simmons. We saw that for like 3 off seasons, and still he refuses to shoot three-pointers. And that's a problem, especially now, because teams know that he's passive and he doesn't want to score. Now, during media day, the Nets front office and the coaching staff, and even Simmons himself, struck a positive tone about his readiness for the upcoming season. But really, I don't even think Ben Simmons wants to even play in the next season. I really don't know, like, the situation surrounding Ben Simmons, but it's like, I can't put my trust in this guy. I genuinely cannot. And while there is a bunch of positivity, I think the only reason why there is positivity is because that's what Ben Simmons needs. And we saw how he reacted and we saw how he responded to all the criticism with Philly. He did not, when a player gets criticized by their home team, the way good players, in my opinion at least, good players, what they would do is they would get so much better and like the next season and use that as inspiration to try and be better and to sort of prove people wrong. But Ben Simmons did the exact opposite. He just laid down there and just didn't do anything. And when that just told me everything that I need about to know about Ben Simmons. When he's faced with adversity, he's not going to try and overcome it. And do you really want that as a player? Someone who's do you really want a player who's not going to try and overcome adversity regardless of how tough it is, regardless of how bad the criticism is? Do you really want that as a player that's making $44 million in a year? I don't think so. And I think teams already realize that, and I understand that the contract is an issue, but even then, I wouldn't even give him a minimum contract if that's his attitude to the game. Why would I want a player that doesn't want to face adversity and doesn't want to overcome challenges on my team? That's just a detriment, if anything else. And I cannot go back on it. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, but that's really my stance on Ben Simmons and just the entire situation going on. I'm not optimistic about Ben Simmons at all. I don't think his trade value is going to increase even in the slightest unless he starts shooting three-pointers. That's really when his trade value is going to skyrocket, when he starts shooting three-pointers and he starts making three-pointers. Because if he doesn't, people are only going to consider him the same player that he was when he left Philly. And that's the gambit. And that's all that I have on this 5th segment, and that's it for the show. Thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. Really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. As usual, we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether you guys have a hot take or a burning question. We are all ears. And if you really want your comment or question to get noticed, then I recommend using Super Chat. Just click on the $ below the chat box, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. And if Super Chat isn't really your thing, then that's totally fine. You can always use the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment, gsmcpodcast.net. Send in your comments and or donations that way. Either or really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. And that is all that I have today on this 5th segment. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to